Viewers, I welcome you once again to the show. Thank you for watching us. Thank you for joining us on yet another wonderful episode of this program. I am host today, Isa Mukhtar Yunus, and with me are students with high quantum of intellect, and they are Saleh Mustafa Ali from my left, and Mariam Saleh and Fatima Bingel from my right. I feel very grateful and honored to have you here on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Today, viewers, we are going to discuss bribery and corruption, the backbone of national demise, the jeopardizer and tarnisher of one's national image and development, the diviner of difficulties and hard times for the citizens. And our guests here today are having their point of views, which I and you viewers ought to hear it out. Without much waste of time, we have been hearing about the phrase bribery and corruption without knowing what it means because it has been the mantra of the present administration during the campaign and the election. So by such, my first question today is to you, Saleh Mustafa Ali. What do you think, or what is bribery and corruption?
Thank you. Well, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to Elvir Global Foundation and Borno Radio Television Corporation for this rare privilege. Now to your question. Let me start by defining bribery. Bribery is defined by Black's Law Dictionary as the offering, giving, receiving, or soliciting of any items of value to influence the actions of an official or other person in charge of the public. A bribe is an illegal or unethical gift or lobbying effort bestowed to influence the recipient conduct. It may be money, goods, right in action, property, privilege, object of value, or merely a promise to induce the action, vote, or actions of an official or public capacity. Corruption, while corruption is is any unlawful or improper behavior that seeks to gain an advantage through illegitimate means.
Okay.
Yes, through illegitimate means. Corruption is a form of dishonesty or criminal offense undertaken by persons or organizations entrusted with a position of authority to acquire illicit benefit or abuse power for one's private gain. Corruption ranges from different scales. Corruption ranges from small favors between a small number of people, that is petty corruption, to corruption that affects the government on large scale, that is grand corruption, and to corruption that is so prevalent that it is part of everyday structure of the society.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Saleh. That's indeed a definition with great satisfaction. But let's take another perspective of the definition. Fatima Bingel, what do you have to say, or what do you have to add on what he has just said?
Bribery and corruption are two different things. Bribery means the act of giving or receiving an unearned reward to influence someone's behavior, while corruption is any unlawful or improper act that seeks to gain an advantage through unauthorized means. Bribery, extortion, cartels, deception, collusion, embezzlement, and money laundering are all forms of bribery and corruption. Bribery and corruption are now serious challenge in the public administration of Nigeria. It has deeply eaten into all the sector of the Nigerian society. This can be attested from the exposure of various probe panels that have established or launched at various times by various regimes in the nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatima Bingel. Now to you, Mariam Saleh. What's your contribution on what they have just said?
Bribery. Let me start by defining bribery first.
Okay.
Bribery. Bribery is the crime of giving someone money or something else of value, often illegally, to persuade that person to do something you want. Or
Okay.
is the crime of giving someone, especially someone in a position of authority, money, a gift, etc., so that they will do something illegal or dishonest for you. Well, corruption is dishonest behavior by those in positions of power, such as managers and government officials. Corruption can include giving or accepting or inappropriate gift, double dialing, under the table transactions, manipulating elections, diverting funds, laundering money, and defrauding investors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariam Saleh. Indeed, from the definition you have all gave us now, we have learned that bribery and corruption is a crime and it has to be with a valuable material or substance. Now, thank you. Now, still with you, Fatima Bingel, what do you think are the causes of bribery and corruption as far as Nigeria is concerned?
Bribery and corruption had a lot of causes. Among them are, first, personal greed that leads to an unfettered desire for money or power with no regard whatsoever to moral boundaries. Second, decline of personal ethical sensitivity, either due to lack of education or negative learning experience developed by downplaying perverse conduct in the past. Third, no sense of service when working in private or public institutions. This is seen, for instance, in those who use politics for their selfish interests instead of serving the common good through politics. Fourth, low awareness of lack of courage to denunciate corrupt individuals. That is, the case of someone who is aware of corruption and stay quiet. They simply cover for the corrupt individuals. Fifth, cultural environment that condone complaint, such as defending or admiring the crooks. Someone needs to be pretty smart to evade taxes and avoid fake arguments with no moral basis.
Yes, indeed.
Six, lack of transparency, especially at the institutional level, but also in less formal organizations. Seventh, regulation and inefficient controls. Increased regulation and control mechanisms are probably not the answer. They are costly and tend to stifle initiatives and administrative dynamics. 8. Show judicial process. In some other countries, we would have had an unreliable to that statement. Tweet process can have a greater exemplifying effect than those that, by the time the sentence comes, the crime is already nearly forgotten. Justice requires appealing process and warranties, but not if it means slowing down the administration of justice. Ninth, lack of moral criteria in promotion. Corruption is prevalent if there are no proven integrity and responsibility in the promotion. Such criteria are ignored when someone is promoted simply because of their loyalty to whoever is in charge and those in control of the party. Finally, downplaying or reacting mildly to corruption charges. Little power of decision within organization to set examples creates an environment conducive to perpetuating of corruption. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatima Bingel. Now to you, Sari Mustafa Ali. You have heard what Fatima Bingel has just said, that she has made mention of the causes of bribery and corruption. Now, can you brief us on the effects of bribery and corruption?
Yes, the effects that has really affected us in different ways. But the common ways we have poor education and healthcare. The International Monetary Fund shows corruption has an adverse impact on the quality of education and healthcare provided in countries with emerging economies. Corruption increases the cost of education in countries where corruption, bribery, and connection play an important role in the recruitment and promotion of teachers. As a result, the quality of education decreases, and this affects the overall health of the economy. Also, corruption in the designation of healthcare providers and recruitment of personnel, as well as the procurement of medical supplies and equipment. Emerging economies result in inadequate healthcare treatment and a substandard or restricted medical supplies, lowering the overall health of the economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Salim Mustafa Ali. That's pathetic indeed. Now, to you, Mariam Saleh, how does bribery and corruption affected our country?
Well, bribery and corruption affects our country in the following process: high rate of unemployment and encourage all the sources of insurgency and criminal acts in the country, such as Boko Haram crisis, Niger Delta bandit, rape,
Yes.
rape, rape, prostitution, kidnapping, sodomy, lesbianism, and cultism. And it also has a negative effect on employees' morale as well, because when employees knows that they are working for an organization or a ministry where the management of that particular ministry has not tolerated, they are less likely to put their more efforts into their work. Secondly, corruption contributed immensely to the falling standard of education in our country. Systematic use of public office for private benefit, and its consequences has particularly for the poor who without access to education or with no alternative. It results to fall down of education in our country. For example, when employing teachers, Those with qualities and competence of teaching will not be given the opportunity. Only those who have a kind of godfather will be employed. So as this result, it leads to production of illiterate students. So also, the money that had been given for school facilities such as infrastructures, reading and writing materials will not be used the, for the school. The people mentioned above puts them in their pockets.
Of course.
It also influences the way that students view success in life. In some cases, young people even suggest that they don't have to work very hard at school in order to have a good life. They might do just fine if they are able to get a government post, for they believe a huge personal fortune through corruption, whether it is true or not. Such a view is indeed very disturbing and dangerous for the country. Another major concern is that many students have been exposed to some forms of corruption. This exposure to corrupt practices might reduce student respect for laws and regulation tellingly. If they run into trouble with school, they can often bribe their way out. A similar vicious cycle of law breaking and bribery might lead to social disorder or even chaos. The lack of, the lack of respect for laws will impede the government abilities to develop the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariam Saleh. That's indeed awful. Like, this is selflessness, or let me say selfishness and greed. But however, thank you. We have no time by our side. Now to you, Mariam, to you, Fatima Bingo. What do you have to add on what they have just said?
Bribery and corruption can adversely impact trust in institutions. Corruption can also impact government provision of goods and services. It increases the cost of goods and services, which arise from efficiency loss. Bribery and corruption erodes the trust we have in the public sector to act in our best interest. It also wastes our taxes or rates that have been earmarked. We have to put up with poor quality service or we miss out altogether. Thank you.
Thank you also, Fatima Bingo. Now to you, Saleh Mustafa Ali. You have had all the effects I have made mention, and you also, you have made mention of some. So how can a society get rid of that effect, or let me say, how can a society get rid of bribery and corruption?
Well, corruption is a criminal offense, and the subject has received a fair share of legislative time and attention. Considering the number of substantive laws that have been enacted by National Assembly in Nigeria,
Yes.
Section 10 of Code of Boria and Tribunal Act prohibit public officers from receiving gifts or omitted to be done by them in the discharge of their duties. Section 12, 20, and 23 of corrupt practices and other related offenses also prohibit all forms of bribery and gratification of public officers. But despite the law in place, individuals still run fall. To get rid of bribery and corruption in our society, the underlying element of these laws is the intention to eradicate or prevent corruption at all levels, from private individuals to public officials, from regulation of conduct of public officers to regulation on public requirement, and due process and transparency in financial transactions. The laws intend to set policies in place is the intention that effectively prevent corruption and prescribe sanctions for defaulters. This is the only way we can get rid of bribery and corruption in our society. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Saleh Mustafa Ali. Still with you. Let's take, for example, your voice is not heard, or it is heard but not put in action. Can you tell us what future holds for a country that is plunged in bribery and corruption?
Yes, a nation that is plunged in bribery and corruption will not develop. It will remain poor forever. The citizens will suffer from unfavorable business conditions, poverty, and corruption will become the culture of the people, both poor and rich. And there will be starvation, that is extreme hunger,
Yes.
and debt, bad educational system, bad roads, bad economy, and low foreign investment. The future will be very bad. There will be no job opportunity for youth, especially the graduating ones. And this lack of employment opportunities will generate all sorts of criminalities. And aside, there will be no security of lives and property. Thank you.
Thank you, Saleh Mustafa Ali. Now to you, Mariam Saleh. What's your call on the necessary stakeholders?
Well, I'm calling on the government to collaborate with the media to expedite an action in creating an awareness through radio, TV programs like this to emphasize the need to abolish bribery and corruption at smaller and larger scales. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariam Saleh. Now to you, Fatima Bingil. You have heard what she has said. Do you have any call on the necessary stakeholders?
My call to the stakeholders is that they should have that patriotic mind to save the country from bribery and corruption. They should also organize a committee to count and keep track of official activities of general and public office holders. And the media should also lead an aggressive campaign against bribery and corruption. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatima Saleh. Now we are heading to the last question, and that question is to you, Saleh Mustafa Ali. What's your call on the necessary stakeholders?
My call on necessary stakeholders is that we have anti-corruption agencies such as EFCC, Economic and Financial Crime Commission, ICPC, Independent Corrupt Practices Commission, and ACS, Anti-Corruption Authorities. More especially the EFCC, the Economic and Financial Crime Commission, is a Nigerian law enforcement agency that investigates financial crimes such as advance fee fraud and money laundering. So these stakeholders should be just, they should discharge their responsibility without any sense of nepotism, favoritism. Let them discharge their responsibility according to the Constitution. They should be just. Thank you.
Thank you, Saleh Mustafa Ali. I heard you make mention of the anti-corruption agency like the EFCC and the ICPC. I have just heard, or let me say, in the past few days, I've heard that the federal government are demanding another anti-corruption agencies. Does that mean that the present anti-corruption agencies we have aren't doing their work exactly the way it's supposed to be, or what?
Yes, they are really trying, but this additional agency will help to enhance the situation.
Okay.
That
So
is,
that's the wisdom behind it.
yes,
Okay.
that is.
Okay, thank you, Salim Mustafa Ali. Now we are drawing the curtain of the show. We are heading towards the end of the show. This program is brought to you by Elvira Global Foundation in collaboration with Born Radio Television Cooperation. Keep it with us, same time, same date. Thank you. Bye bye.